Midwifery. Communication model. In order to explain the social process of communication, scholars have developed several models. The three most well-known models for the communication are linear, interaction, and transaction. As West and Turner, 2017, explain, each model shed light on the development of communication, but emphasize different parts of communication process. The models provide pictures or visual representation of complex interaction. They are useful because they simplify the basic structure of communication and can help us to understand the structure, not just verbally, but also visually. Most importantly, they identify the various elements of communication and serve as a kind of map to show how different parts of the communication process are interrelated. Next.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy De Castro from BS Midwifery. So what is communication model? For me, communication model are what we use to interact to each other. Like this, I am a reporter right now and I'm the one who sent a message and my group mates are the receiver or the listener. In this communication model, we can express our thoughts and feelings. This communication model describes how a sender or speaker transmit a message to a receiver or listener. Without communication, we cannot understand each other. We cannot share our thoughts and our insight. For the example, we can see in this picture or in this drawing the sender and the receiver. At in the middle, they have a message and the feedback. The sender is the one who encoding and the receiver is the one who decoding and give a feedback. And that's all and that's my insight for communication model. Next please.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Samantha Leani Flores from BSN Midwifery. Communication models are systematic representations of the process which helps in understanding how communication works can be done. Models show the process metaphorically and in symbols. They form general perspectives on communications by breaking communication from complex to simple and keeps the components in order. Communication models can sometimes encourage traditional thinking and stereotyping, but can also omit some major aspects of human communication. Methods and channels of communication to be used, and the purpose of communication must be considered before using a specific communication model. Models are used by business companies and other foster their communication, explore their options, and to evaluate their own situations. It is also used to understand how the receivers will interpret the message. That's all. Thank you. Next.
Good day. I am Tricia Flores from Midwifery Department, and today I will share my insights regarding communication models and to our illustration. There are 3 points that I would like to share of what is the importance of communication models. First point is that for me, it pertains that communication models are somehow conceptual models that is used to elaborate, discuss, and show off how communication models is important to human way of communication. Second, communication models talks about the underlying principle around in which development communication build ideas on how to efficiently transmit the content of the message that they would want to convey into a specific audience. And lastly, communication models as well as techniques aid practitioners' work by providing information on how people respond to various kinds of communication stimuli, as well as the potential effects of participants in an effective communication using one style of communication or switching to another. Furthermore, communication models and approaches offer practitioners a variety of options. So that's all po. Thank you. Next.
Hello everyone, I'm Angelica Pigol from BS Midwifery. Models of communication provide inputs for setting a standard communication system and ensuring effective communication in a business organization. They are examined from organizational perspective. Each organization sets up its own communication system, mostly deriving inspiration from popular communication models. This model is specifically designed to develop the effective communication between sender and receiver. Also, they find factors which affecting the communication process called noise. At first, the model was developed to improve the technical communication. Later, it's widely applied in the field of communication. Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Maria Katrina Yumol from BS Midwifery 1. So I will going to discuss about the communication model, but before I proceed to communication model, I will discuss briefly explanation about the communication. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. So according to mode, it has a types of communication. First, the verbal communication is the use of words to share information with other people. For example, you are disciplining your employees in a direct and respectful manner. Second, nonverbal communication, it is covering body language, gestures, how we dress or act, so where we stand, and even our sense. For example, the tone of our voice then can give clues to mood or emotional state. Wheels, hand signals, or the gestures that can add to a spoken message. And the last is visual communication. Is used for visual elements to convey ideas and information, which include but are not limited to signs, typography, drawing, graphics, designs, illustrations, or advertising. An example of the visual communication is the short clip from an old news broadcast. And then, according to context, it has a types of communication. The first is the intrapersonal communication. From the Latin prefix intra means within or the inside. Intrapersonal communication then means talking oneself or talking yourself. For example, you motivate yourself to become a better person, or you motivate yourself to become dean in your school. Second, the interpersonal communication from the Latin prefix inter means between, among, or together. Interactive exchange communication takes place also. The example is your teacher and the students are talking about the lesson. That's the example of interpersonal communication. And lastly, the extended communication involves the use of electronic media. The example is you are watching a movie in the cinema. That's kind of example of extended communication. Intercultural communication refers to the communication between people from two different cultures. For example, uh, the Chinese politician discussion with an American leader, or an American and African share their views. And the last types of communication, and according to purpose and style, uh, it has a formal communication which employs formal language delivered orally or in written form, or lectures, public talks, speeches, or the business proposal. And informal communication, it is certainly does not employ formal language. For example, the manager calls an employee to his chamber and talks with him for someone relating to official work. And the rumor is spread that the employee will be promoted to higher position, ignoring the promotion of other employees. And then models of communication are conceptual models used to explain the human communication process. The internal cognitive process that allows participants to send, receive, and understand message is the encoding and the encoding process. Encoding is the process of turning thoughts into communication. As we will learn, the level of conscious thought that goes into encoding message varies. Decoding is the process of turning communication into thoughts. For example, you may realize you are angry and encode the following message to send to your roommate. I am angry. Do you want to get pizza tonight? So as your roommate receives the message, he decodes your communication and turns it back into thoughts in order to make meaning out of it. We don't just communicate verbally, but we have various options or the channels for communication. Encoded message are sent through a channel or a sensory route on which a message travels to the receiver for decoding. While the communication can be sent and received using the sensory route, uh, like your sight, smell, touch, taste, or the sounds. Most communication occurs through visual or the sight and or auditory or the sounds channels. If your roommate has headphones on and is engrossed in a video game, you may need to get his attention by waving your hands before you can ask him about the dinner. That's all. Next po.
Hi, I'm Peter Christian P. from PS Radiologist Technologies. The communication model it is have identity and understand the components and relationship of the communication process. Being started models represent new ideas and thought on various aspects of communication which help us to plan for effective communication system. So the next picture in the communication model, the center is the individual who initiates a message and is also the communicator or source of communication. Then the receiver is the listener, reader, or observer. That is the individual or the group of individuals to whom a message is directed. The receiver is also the audience or the owner. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Roteza Maxim Espelande and I will explain what is communication. Communication is a Latin word which means to share. It is the sharing of information between different individuals. It includes the sharing of ideas, concept, imagination, behaviors, and written content. Communication is simply defined as the transfer of information from one place to another. This transfer of information can be conducted in different ways. Thank you.
We hope that you've learned something about communication models. Again, this is from Midwifery Department. Thank you so much for listening.